No pictures. No pictures today. I can never. Still nervous making videos. Still saying Alright, well, I just want to make a short one. There's a bunch kind of lined up. There's a few I'm kind of deciding to wait on or not really put out at the moment. Really enjoy doing talks with others to have that feedback. There's a real, strong progression, momentum that gets developed. And I'm also learning who I can and like basically who it's not going to work to attempt that with. Which is, it's rare, but not everybody focuses in the same way, and certain ways of processing the information, it doesn't really provide a medium that can get to the kinds of perspectives which are really enjoyable and seem to yield the most assistance in understanding the situation, because it's really expansive and weird, and it's about consciousness and awareness and universe, holographic layers and dimensional, a lot of theoretical stuff and metaphysical stuff. But the idea that I'm presenting today is that in the past, it's real simple. It's only gonna be a couple minutes, first time ever. I have another one that I'm gonna do a few minutes, few minute video, and we'll see where that goes and what comes after that. But the main idea here is that in the past there has been far more experience, civilization, consciousness at a very high level too. We're at basically the minimum here, for a long time, potentially millions of years or longer. The idea is that the majority of these, I'm pretty sure the majority of them, and although not all of them, because just for continuity, and as well, like what would happen if everybody kind of ended up in this type of downward spiral that we're seeing on Earth, that would have massive continuity issues. However, as well, I think a lot of civilizations merged into what we call like a higher dimensional perspective, and so they graduated or achieved salvation, whatever you want to call that. But the majority of one, and at least the ones that are present here, the remnants that made it here, basically went through some type of collapse situation and some type of prolonged war scenario, which more or less developed into this type of heavily controlled society we have today. This society is the remnants of the previous societies that collapsed. And so the idea is that there are a bunch of reasons why those collapses took place, and it's generally about consciousness, and there's a lot about consciousness, biological consciousness, and this type of illusion system. But for lack of more elaboration, it's about awareness and experience and consciousness, and how, because of distortions and disharmonies through addictions and ego and aggression, basically lower behavior, lower energetic awareness. Sorry if I seem a little distracted, because that persisted, these lower cycles, it enabled and led into war and basic collapse of all order, loss of health and balance and harmony that comes with a control over the energies. And each group we have here, which everybody is lumped together as one civilization, society, one people, which is relative, but as well the origins are kind of all spread out in frequency. And each group comes from a different each group here comes from a different, basically different civilization then, if you will, in time. And these the reasons for each individual civilization, time period, genetic gene group, whatever you want to call it, however you want to identify that, the reasons are usually different. They vary for why there was the collapse. The idea I'm presenting is that the plan, more or less, to find a resolution for this whole situation is to basically expose the population more or less to every kind of threat, basically, that resulted in the corruption of every other previous civilization or species or gene group. And that is because, since we're all mixed up, the only way for the individual groups or civilizations to heal is to reassess themselves in light reference to that corruption or disorder or whatever it was that basically persisted and caused the downfall of their civilization. We're all mixed up, so the only way to do this now is to have the whole group, all at one, exposed to every single form of corruption to a degree, but more so every single threat that led to the corruption of these previous civilizations. And through this, it's like a large-scale event, a systematic refining of energies, a systematic, even like a systemic purging of these capabilities. It's like genes as well, and genes are operated by consciousness is operated by awareness. So, you know, it's all through willpower. Once people choose to not buy into those this corruption, the schemes, the platforms, and give their energy away in that manner, in theory and in practice, they're no longer susceptible. It's like there's an immunity. Sorry, I'm distracted by what's going on at the window. But so there's an immunity there. There's no longer susceptibility, and that's the plan. But the idea is that every collapse, every civilization, every bad thing, villain, corruption, technology, power that was abused, whatever it is being made present here to the whole, so that every single group that is here, and in that way every single individual, has the opportunity to go and rise above basically the downfall of every previous civilization that has come up to this point, which means it's the creation of those that survive the most powerful civilization or race up to now in the history of the universe. So that's hard to stomach for some, but that's what's happening. And as well, if it wasn't happening, it might be that one or the other form of corruption would gain control over what is right now like a smear of corruption, and it would basically be like an infection that overruns. Right now we have multiple infections that are fighting over the host, fighting with each other, the other bacteria, the other infection, the infectious agent, and that's keeping them at bay. And as a result, slowly there's immunity being developed. So very strange, very outlandish, almost bewildered, or bewildering, but bizarre. But that's what's going on. That's the plan, and there's thousands of other layers from where the origins of the idea, the people, the technology, the basically temporal, transtemporal agencies and processes, securities, different groups, protection, liberation, to basically those that are still being harboring the infection and are operating on a motivation to basically collapse this civilization. And so there's so much more, but that's the idea. And that all these previous civilizations that we saw through one or the other source collapsed, whether it was nanotechnology or the destruction of their environment through certain scalar generators, the falling into by frequency into basically bestial behavior. Excuse me. Basically, that was the mating with the Earth women. Excuse me. The story of that, and we're only given like a few stories in public. But there's, for every different type of gene group here, there's a story of a civilization, a complete civilization that went and existed in a high state and collapsed. And the idea behind that is that every possibility already exists, which is really backwards from the way we perceive it, which is that you have to have baseline reference, a solid ground from which you begin to build the possibilities. But the idea is that we're seeing it backwards and everything already happened. We're in a kind of time-delayed like a limbo of experience here where we're repeating the same things that are of the ancient past, and it's apparently been happening until it can be gone past, like a time loop that will replay until we get the point. And apparently this is the time where there's enough energy and the greatest likelihood that our experience will move past that boundary, if you will, and that there won't be any more people up ahead waiting for the next cycle to come around, and that it's just going to be done. So that's part of the idea. So much more. I'll leave it at that. I'm going to try and might come up with another video. I'll try to look at the camera more today while I have time in a quiet apartment, because I've been writing a little bit, and a lot of this is just about your ability to acquire possibility